And that's yet another DDG win.
All right, welcome Dead Draw Gamers to episode 8 of the DG podcast. Tonight I got Gabe Smart TCG, and Nick Moffitt joining us. We are coming off our first DDG win of the season, quotations, because Andrew Hedrick and Piper have taken down many events this year, but we got our first win as a team down in Bogotá at the SPE. Gabe coming off a top 4 finish at Bogotá. How are y'all doing tonight, Gabe and Nick?
I'm doing pretty good. I have a pretty hectic schedule getting to Hartford over the next couple of days, so it's going to be quite an adventure. I should have an article coming out on Cutter Tap over the next few days as well, hopefully dedicated towards that. Just got back from Bogota yesterday afternoon. But yeah, no, things have been good. I'm excited to play in another regional, still pushing for that top 16 berth. I'm 9th now after the event, but I think that like we can, kind of go into that in a few minutes. But yeah, no, I'm feeling good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well as well. I just submitted my last paper for the semester yesterday and drove home today. So hanging out here for a few days before I head over to Hartford. And then we'll be off to New Jersey to start my internship after that.
Badass. Okay. Well, itinerary for tonight. Few things. We're going to talk about the Bogotá SPE. We're going to kind of talk about Gabe's run to the top 4. There was a major DQ that I think Andrew was going to win it regardless. He had a good matchup.
Andrew was going to win the matchup. I think he already won game 1. Like
he
was
not
a
the DDQ win. I don't think is a fair hashtag out there. So, but we'll talk about the DQ. We also got some Pokemon 151 cards to preview. There are a bunch of kind of spoilers out there for that. Then we'll kind of go through the various regionals that have happened since we last talked to y'all. We had the Philippines regional, the Portland regional, and of course the Bogotá SPE. So we'll kind of go through that. And after that, we'll do our Cutter Tap portion of the podcast. We'll kind of cut it off for the YouTube and audio podcast audience and head over to the member section of Cutter Tap, where Stage 2 members can listen to the last 10-15 minutes of the podcast, where we'll talk about this weekend's Hartford Regional. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to quickly mention we are I just picked up a full pallet of sealed product from our distributors today. So we are going to have a ton of Crown Zenith products. We got the Shiny Zacian, Shiny Zamazenta Premium Collection boxes, the Morpeko V-Union playmat with Marnie Premium Collection boxes, and a couple other Crown Zenith products, some Palkit Battle decks. A ton of sealed product is going to go up, so please be sure to check all that out over at deaddrawgaming.com. We also have all the cards you need, all the way from the supporters, trainers, Pokemon, every single card you'll need for any top deck that is going to be played at Hartford, you can pick up at deaddrawgaming.com. So with that, let's get into the Bogotá SPE for a little bit. Gabe, you want to just kind of give us a quick summary of how the tournament went, how the trip went, how your run ended up? I know you didn't really squeak into the top 8, but I think it was a nail biter for you going into it.
It was an emotional one, that's for sure.
Yeah, give us a little rundown of how the tournament go.
Yeah, so I ended up getting 3rd place. There's around 80 players, but a large portion of them were like top 16 chasers, like world championship like that. So the event was actually really, really stacked. I went through, I think I hit 4 or 5 players that have gotten their invites or had their invites already. I decided to play Lugia V-Star. I kind of wanted to go safe. I knew that if I played a 50-50 deck in a smaller field, there's a pretty good chance I could make it through. Because Lugia doesn't necessarily beat anything consistently, but doesn't lose to anything consistently. I think that's like the big thing that makes Lugia such a strong deck right now. So that was kind of my thought process, heading into the tournament. I actually lost to 2 lost boxes in Swiss because I just went and draw pass in the games, and then I hit like turn 4 summoning star as well. Like I was just drawing horribly, so I actually lost to 2 lost box, which should be one of Lugia's better matchups. So I was feeling really, really down about that because in the first 4 rounds I was 2-2. I lost to the same 60 twice, and then I ran off 3 in a row. Got in as like 6th seed. I took out Mew VMAX, which is actually one of Lugia's best matchups. Pretty easy as long as you don't get path bricked on one turn, and even if you do, you still have a second turn to draw out of it. From my experience, because you just take 6 prizes in 2 turns. So I was able to do that. I was able to run through the field, went through Mew in top 8, and then I hit Andrew Hedrick, who ended up winning the tournament. Shout out to them. One of my closer friends. I got game 1. It was honestly, it was such an incredible series. They actually didn't have timed rounds in top cut, which was strange because Swiss rounds we only had 45 minutes best of 3, but in top cut they just completely took away the time. So we played like 2 30-minute games. I got game 1, he got game 2, and then I got turn 1 Dragonite donked in game 3. So I finished off 3rd place, originally 4th, but then the DQ bumped me up to 3rd place. I was hoping I would have gotten 2nd place, because that would have meant we both would have gotten 1st and 2nd, which would have been super cool. But I still got 3rd place, which like I can't complain. Got more points, and pretty much I should be good for the top 16 race as of right now. After that finish, so like I'm happy. And shout out to Andrew for winning. Yeah,
Is the
his 3rd major here, by the way. He's insane.
Yeah, 3rd major tournament this year. And 2 of those were back-to-back tournaments, which is crazy.
Insane. Yeah.
And the 2 biggest ones.
Yeah, 2 biggest TCG North American tournaments ever. Was the time limit for top 8, is that at the discretion of the TO, or is it like, was that technically against the rules?
I think it's at the discretion of the TO. It's just that
Yeah.
the general consensus is 60 or 75 usually for regionals. I remember when me and Nick actually played in top 8 at SLC regionals. I think it was 75. I could be wrong. It was either 65 or 75. I remember that. It seems to change. Like I think sometimes top 8's different than top 4 or finals. I could be wrong there.
Usually it's the same all the way through.
It is?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's definitely been different between tournaments.
Yeah, they switch up between tournaments. The weird thing was 45 minutes best of 3, because actually
Right.
one of the problems with the event, and I actually think they ran a super good event. The only complaint I had was they would start the timer pretty much 2 to 3 minutes after pairings were announced. So we would still be shuffling up the deck, and there would be 41 minutes left of a 45-minute timer. So that actually kind of changed how a lot of players played. Like there were times where I was scooping when I could have made, like when I still might have had a route, I was scooping because I didn't think that route was like secure enough, because I didn't have like that extra, like 5 to 10 minutes that we normally would have, right? So that was the only bizarre thing about the event, but the rest of everything else was like fantastic. Everyone was like super nice. There was actually a party at the venue after, once Hedrick won. It was just like super cool to like connect with a lot of the LATAM players. Like most of them are really nice. So yeah, no, it was a great experience.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, one slight downside of the tournament was a huge kind of kerfuffle that came out of it. In the finals, I'm not gonna try to pronounce the guy's name, but there was a player DQ'd from the tournament. It was pretty clear on stream that he was stacking. You just want to kind of give us some background on, because actually I'll give some background first, because how it went down was this was streamed on YouTube. Immediately during the top 4 match, the clips of the match started going up on Twitter, where you could clearly see the guy. I thought the guy was like shuffling overhand and watching the bottom of the deck just so he could cut it and place a card at the top of the deck. I didn't realize it wasn't until I think Azul did his video where you can clearly see him thumb a card from the bottom and put it on the top of the deck. And then to make matters worse, it kind of seems like he just tried to distract the other player with a fist bump in the middle of a match. And then during the finals match, it clearly came to the judge's attention that this had happened. Somewhat of a discussion. The player eventually got DQ'd after game 1, which Andrew had won. And Andrew ended up winning the tournament. What happened in the background? What was going on from your point of view as this all went down?
Yeah, so I believe their name is Eder Harillo. I think that's how you spell it. I think the J is silent. So basically from what happened was at the venue, I actually was there because I had just lost my top 4 match, and I decided to check social media, and I saw the post by the 2017 world champion Diego Casarraga. And he made a post, kind of talking about it, and I actually watched the video, and I actually was the one. So I showed, I don't know if it was a store owner or someone who worked there, someone, or maybe like one of like the stream producers, I don't know, but I showed them. I was like, this looks kind of strange, and they looked at it and they were like, oh my god, and I actually, from Yeah, because they ended up like talking to the stream people. They showed them the clips, blah blah blah. Eder then was disqualified. I think also it's really important to know that Andrew, I think, was favored to win the series regardless. That matchup is relatively fine for him. He had Sky Sealstone plus the Dragonite, which really helps out like versus that matchup. So I think he probably would have been okay regardless. But I know that kind of puts a kind of like a stain on the win, but I don't necessarily think that's reasonable to say because I think he was still going to win. So the vibe there was just, I think a lot of people were disappointed, like when I talked to like some of the judges, they were just like sad, because I think it's important to know that this is just, like one person. Like I didn't hear about any other cheating allegations at the tournament. But apparently this person has a history of doing it. I know Zach Lesage played against Eder in the finals of a SPE, and he tried to bribe him apparently, and he got DQ'd there. And now there's also been more clips of him, potentially doing sus stuff. So he's had a history of getting DQ'd repeatedly from special events. There was a London Open post as well about something. I don't know, like obviously like I'm not one to judge and call people out on that stuff. So it's just like it's an unfortunate scenario that's really, kind of impossible, to deal with in the right way, because there's obviously a lot of players who felt like they got, cheated out of the tournaments. I know that one of my friends, Michael, who ended up going there, he came over, from California and spent quite a bit of money. He started 2-0, I believe. So he was doing relatively good. And then he lost to Eder because he just completely bricked. Which is really unfortunate, because maybe if that doesn't happen, maybe he starts 3-0-1, 3-0, something like that. And then like he starts to hit like decent matchups. So it's just really unfortunate to see what happened there. And the clips were pretty blatant. So yeah, I guess it's not necessarily frustration all around. It's just kind of like sad. Like, why would this happen? Like
yeah,
this, like this
disappointment.
This doesn't need to happen. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, there was clips that came out of him double retreating like at an IC. The casters are going crazy about it, and I guess it just word didn't get down to the judges quick enough, and the game ended. Very sus. How did he react? Was he surprised to get DQ'd? Was he like,
no? And that's the funny thing. I think that's the thing that made it even more unfortunate. Like it wasn't like he was fighting the DQ. I don't even think he tried to argue it that much. He just kind of just like looked sad, and then he got up. He spoke to a couple of other players there, then left the venue. That's pretty much all it was. It was one of the most bizarre DQs I have ever seen, because oftentimes, like players are going to be, like visibly upset, which, like rightfully so. Like your tournament has been, officially stopped, and like you can't play anymore. So that's the big thing that I think also made people even more upset, is that it's almost like he was just saying like, yeah, I guess I'm DQ'd. Like people that get, kicked out of tournaments after traveling that far typically should not respond that way. Like you spent probably hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go to this event. So that's what makes it even seem even more blatant, because there isn't any like natural like, oh, like why are you DQing me? Like I wasn't doing this. There wasn't any like resistance, it seemed like, which just also even makes it even more sad, right? That it's just like this clearly happened, apparently, So
I really hope it leads to a DQ or a ban, because I mean it's like this isn't even word of mouth or like he said she said. There's like a clear example on video for them to look at. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, last thing on the SPEs. Are either of you planning on attending any other SPEs for the rest of the season, or is it just going to be regionals and the IC?
I would have to look at the schedule of them, but I doubt it, most likely. I'm pretty set on my regional best finish limits. I will still be going to Hartford and to Milwaukee, and then just NAIC and of course Yokohama. So looking forward to those, but yeah, probably won't be planning too many other trips. I'm pretty set for top 16 this year, so don't need to go crazy chasing points.
I don't need to go anymore. Now, if I had bombed Bogota, then that would potentially change. However, I'm pretty much almost in a similar spot as Nick, where I have to get top 16 or better to get any points. So there necessarily isn't a huge reason if I'm in a comfortable spot for the top 16 race. I actually think that special events are a great experience. This was my first time going there. I had gone to Sao Paulo once and had like a really nice experience, and then this was probably my favorite out of country experience ever. And I think that's a big reason as to why a lot of players like to go to these like special events because they're not in like regional championships, so the stakes sometimes are a little bit smaller, stuff like that. It's a more, like casual, just like fun environment. Like in some ways, like obviously like you're there to do well and stuff like that. And like the competition is still like very, very high. But just, like being able to travel to like a different country is pretty cool. I know they just announced, I believe, Cape Town special event, and then I think one other one. I don't know when those are and if those are even for next season. I have no idea. But I don't think I'll go to them unless a bunch of Americans just decide to go to them. And I actually think that's kind of like the annoying thing about special events is that like I will consider going to a special event if like a bunch of like top 16 chasers go, which obviously like the system is not perfect in general, but that would be my only pushing, like that would be the only thing that would like push me to go to any more of these would be that.
Right, because to keep in the top 16, you want to compete
because
against,
Americans do notoriously well at these events just because they're smaller. So that's why they oftentimes do well. And like most of the time, it's just like top 16 players or just like really, really strong players in general that go to these tournaments. So there is just like a statistically higher chance that at least 30 to 40% of them, which is pretty much almost exactly what we saw. I think there's about 10 Americans in Masters that went to Bogota, and there were 3 of them in top cut. So about 30% of them, all of them actually being in the top 16 race already, did exceptionally well at the tournament.
Yeah, I know they have SPEs, typically in South America, and I'm pretty sure they have some in Europe as well, which would be super cool to go to.
Yeah.
But, they definitely have tournaments in areas that aren't going to get an IC or regional, so it's definitely a cool experience to go to. Well, okay, so I want to move on to some of the cards that have recently been released from the Pokemon 151 set that is coming out in Japan this summer. I can't. I need to check to see if it's actually coming out. Let's see. It's coming out June 16th in Japan, and it's probably going to be released in English this fall. So that's likely after the World Championship. But in any case, I think the most interesting one from this like latest set of spoilers is Ditto. This is a colorless Pokemon, 60 HP, and it's got the ability Transforming Start. This ability can only be used as Pokemon's in the active spot and only on your first turn. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon, except any Ditto. If you do, discard this Pokemon and all attached cards and put that Pokemon in its place, then shuffle your deck. It also has 1 attack for 1 colorless that does 10 damage. It's weak to fighting, no resistance, and its retreat cost is 1. So it seems kind of really good if you're, trying to play, more than 4 copies of a card, maybe in Lost Zone for Comfy.
Yeah.
Nick,
that's the first thing that sticks out to me, I think, is in a Lost Zone deck that, because you can, you can also use it to thin out the deck early. So if you say VIP pass for those instead of your Comfies directly and switch into them, and then you only can use it on the first turn, so you would want to make sure you get them out of the deck after that. But then that could, if you want to play basically a smaller deck, that would allow you to do that as well. And then just having more outs to start with Comfy is also really great.
I don't have necessarily as positive of a viewpoint on this card as Nick might have. I think it's mediocre at best. The problem is that it has to be in the active spot. And at that point, why aren't you just playing more nest balls or just, like search cards and stuff like that to be able to find stuff? I do agree that the best spot in it is going to be Lost Zone, kind of giving the deck a pseudo 5th or 6th. Comfy is definitely valuable. And like maybe you can pull like a Radiant Greninja out of the deck just to be able to use concealed cards. So technically could be labeled as a slight consistency booster in some situations. And the problem is that I honestly cannot find any other great use for it. I mean, maybe you could play in an Arc Duraludon type deck where like you want to just add more basic Pokemon to make it less likely that you start something like the Duraludon V because you lose games to starting that card. Yeah. So you could play 4 Arceus, 4 Ditto, and then the 2
Duraludon,
which means that you technically have an 80% chance to not start the Duraludon rather than like a 55-60%. Yeah. So like that's actually interesting there, but the rest of it, I don't know how good it is. Maybe it's okay.
Yeah, you're right about in Lost Box. You could just play like more level ball as well to search out your Comfy. So I don't know how good it actually is.
Does this make sorry, go ahead.
I was saying my point was that you could use it. You can use it to thin the deck. The level ball does the same thing because you can just play and get out of Comfy. But this lets you get anything, I suppose. But yeah, it does have to be in the active. So the only thing you would really want to get is Comfy for the most part. except for I guess your Cramorant to attack turn 1. But yeah, it's not amazing or anything, but it's an interesting card.
And it's also like the downside of only being able to use it your first turn, like you're not protecting a 2-prizer with a single prizer because you're not getting attacked into on your first turn.
Right.
That doesn't help at all. I don't know, like, would this be useful for the new deck that's going to come out with Paldea Evolved? That's basically the attaches many water stage 2. Does that help a little bit with that deck?
Why would that be?
What's that?
Why would that be? Just to have more outs to start with your V?
Well, yeah, well,
EX?
and also to like start out the basic that's going to evolve into your stage 1 for the water attachment ability. But I mean, then again, like you're saying,
again,
it's more
you could just
search cards,
play,
right?
if you don't already have 4 Nest Ball and 4 VIP Pass or whatever. Because it's just like adding more of those, but I guess it decreases odds of starting the minion. That's about it. Because you're fine starting with anything else, I think, generally. Because again, you have to transform it on the first turn.
Yep.
So it's not like you can delay commitment. It's still committal.
Yeah, and it has to be in your active. So like basically, unless you get it in your hand on your 7 draw, and it's either in your active or you have a way to switch it in, it's completely useless.
Right. That's why I think the exception was Lost Box, that you can, bench it later on and then move it in. But then again, why are you not just playing more ball cards?
The biggest issue with the card is that you can also only use it turn 1. Like there's so many negatives about the card. I actually think that if this card you could use it anytime, it'd be a great card. I think it'd be amazing, easily accessible. But the problem is the first turn effect, which I don't even think they needed to put that on. Like I think the card would have been balanced without that anyways.
Yeah, I mean there's like 3 major downsides to it, which okay.
I think if it doesn't have the first turn effect, it's a little too good, because then you can power up like a V on the bench basically without having it as a target.
Okay,
so you can have this thing on the bench, power it up, and then switch into the active, do the change if it were able to be used anytime. So that's a little too good, I think. And you could level ball for anything then.
Yeah, I mean the Ditto Prism Star back in the day was basically that, but you can only have one in the deck, right? So kind of
that one swapped for a basic. You could just evolve it into any stage 1.
Right.
But yeah, that card is just good because it just gave you an actual 5th like Zorua.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this, you still can only put 4 Comfy in play or whatever. Not that you want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe it sees play in Lost Box. I think that's the only thing it would.
And then again, we're not going to get till fall, so there's plenty of cards to see between now and then that may break it. Okay, one other card from the recent spoilers I want to cover. There's a new Vileplume, stage 2 grass, HP 140, has the ability Full Bloom Energy. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may look at the top 8 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. And then 1 attack for grass and 2 colorless. You're doing 90 damage. It's weak to fire, no resistance. It has a retreat cost of 2. I have no idea if there's any grass attackers out there that even makes this close to being viable.
Only grass energy or any basic energy?
Okay. So yeah, you're right.
Any number
of basic energy cards.
And it sees the top 8. Okay, that's decent. Like cards like this are usually not very good, but usually they only look at the top 6. So if you're seeing an extra 2 cards, maybe it has some more potential.
It's top 8, but it's also on a stage 2, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Of course, I just remember that there was some card that was like, when you evolve it, that was even every turn.
It was a Blastoise where like, so there was one Blastoise where when you evolved, you'd look at like a certain amount of cards, or like you discard I forget exactly what it was, but you would attach a bunch of energies that way.
Yeah,
that was the
Magnezone
Bonds.
I think there's a Magnezone
that
lets you look at the top 6 once per turn.
Yeah, that card is actually good.
So
so
I don't see this one being.
Yeah. I think that card's okay in Dialga, man. Stop hating on Magnezone. Yeah,
but
but like, I guess it technically, so like, I think Magnezone is a good card that has no good partners with it except for Dialga. I think that the ability is very, very strong. The problem with this is that you do it once per game and that's it, right? It isn't a once per turn thing, which is why it just sucks.
Because the Magnezone only does metal energy.
Magnezone does metal, but it does as many times. So if there were actually top level metal cards, then the card would definitely have a lot of potential. The problem is there's no support. Yeah. All I'm saying is that the ability is inherently good.
Yes. Yeah. So like, say if that was for lightning Pokemon, because you'd
be broken.
Play, like, Rhydon. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunate. I love Vileplume. It's a cool card. It's a cool Pokemon.
It is. Yeah. There's been some great Vileplume cards in the past, but probably not this one. So yeah, all in all, like Pokemon 151, there may be a couple cards that are pretty interesting, but we'll have to see what the rest are.
Is this a set after Paldea?
So this is going to be like our fall special set, right?
So this is like the Pokemon Go. Okay, so the question is are we going to have a set for Worlds, or we're going to have another Pokemon Go set?
No, I think Paldea Evolved is going to be the last set because they're saying this is coming out. This is the next set after Paldea Evolved.
Okay, so this is the Go set almost, but
it's going to go.
When does it release?
But it's like 2 or 3 months after when Go came out last year.
Okay,
right?
so not going to be for Worlds, yeah. Okay.
No. Which kind of sucks.
So any NIC and Worlds will be the same format this time around, or will they do a rotation? Probably not, because they just
we don't know. I mean they don't tell us anything.
They just did a rotation, so I highly doubt it. I think we're doing the schedule now where we just do rotation in like January or whatnot.
Yeah, I really wish this would have been before Worlds because it was really cool to have just a small set release going into Worlds last year. But yeah, it looks like Paldea Evolved comes out in June. I don't think they're gonna like release another set a month and a half after that to be in front of Worlds. So likely, which is probably gonna be fine because it's probably gonna be a pretty good format once we have I know and that new special energy and whatnot. So.
You get to a point where the more sets are better, or like the more sets, the better until you reach like an expanded level, which is actually why I kind of liked expanded for like a couple years because there wasn't like 100 sets, but you got kind of to a point where there were just like way too many sets. But I think as we get more and more sets, the format kind of starts to evolve. And I think actually what they did is I think they realized that at the beginning of the season, there wasn't enough sets because I remember for like several years, we were just having like the formats at the beginning of the season were just like terrible because there were like 5 or 6 sets available. Basically, what they did was they added 2 more sets because normally we rotated in September, right? And that got pushed back to January, which means that we effectively have 1 to 2 more sets that we used to not have back in the old rotations, which I personally have liked. You know, like I liked having the April time because we had more sets. That we normally didn't have available, I think, at the beginning. So I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of what I've noticed. So
then you can also run into problems though, where we have formats with too many good cards, and then one deck just dominates like Lugia.
Which is yeah, but that's just like expanded, obviously. Which they kind of reached the point where that format's just hell. So
yeah, I haven't thought about it expanded in a while, but I remember seeing those, the Lugia dragon deck where they like turn 1 Lugia and
they don't get to play the game.
GX attack. Turn
go time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, tag teams and VMAX is just destroyed expanded. I mean, it's kind of a dead format.
Yeah, there was a time I preferred expanded to standard. I think
I agree. There was a time I hated standard. Standard, and I was just like, I want to play expanded, and I like tried to only go to expanded events.
Format, expanded used to be so much fun back in the day. Okay, so we're up against the kind of time limit here. I think we're actually going to end it there for the YouTube audience and for our audio podcast. We're going to head over to the Cutter Tap section of this podcast. Thank you all so much for joining this week. We're going to be back on a weekly podcast schedule for the rest of the season. But yeah, go over to Cutter Tap. Get a Stage 2 membership, and you can listen in on the meta discussion for the Hartford Regional for this weekend. But thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.